Imagine, it's a beautiful day in the mountains, infinite blue sky, fresh, deep powder. Two skiers are atop a challenging black diamond run. They sport the same upscale apparel and top-of-the-line gear. They look good. One skier is having the best day ever. The other, the absolute worst day ever. Why would one be in a euphoric state while the other trembles with cold sweat, almost ready to soil those designer pants? One is in the grip of fear, the other has befriended fear. You folks know which one I was. Any skiers or boarders? A few? 1972, my friends take me skiing. For years, we had enjoyed all kinds of challenging, aggressive sports. Surfing, sailing, scuba, hiking, biking, rock climbing. So when they invite me to go ski, yeah, I'm in. I borrow some snow pants, a jacket. We rent skis and boots, and we get on the lift. And we go up and up and up. Now, I had no idea about green circles, blue squares, black diamonds. I was just enjoying the ride. We get off at the top of the mountain. My so-called buddies holler, "Hey, just follow us." And they take off down a steep, convoluted black diamond run. I stare down the slope after them, and I am instantly paralyzed. I can't move. I can't think. I am frozen with fear. After a long, cold eternity, ski patrol finds me, and I get a humiliating ride down the mountain, strapped like a mummy to a rescue sled. Back on flat ground, I swore never again. Skiing is a stupid sport for highly insensitive megalomaniacs. And I need better friends. Years later, I'm listening to early morning radio, and the DJ poses a question to get our brain cells percolating. What do you think is the most sensually erotic sport? And cuts to music. I'm a Southern California guy. I'm thinking water, fluidity, surfing, sailing, scuba. She returns and says, the answer is downhill skiing. No way. I asked everybody I crossed paths with, are you a skier? And if so, how would you rate it in terms of a sensually erotic experience? Almost everyone put it in the top 3. Sex, skiing, food, sex, food, skiing. I am totally blown away. I decided to take a ski lesson, and I learned how to do this snowplow. Now I can handle green runs, but I'm still terrified of anything steeper. And at this point, skiing was a lot more like going to the gym and doing an intense leg workout than something pleasurable. It bothered me seeing how much fun others were having. But fear was keeping that out of my reach. I kept going back, trying to find the joy that others experienced. 1998, I moved to Salt Lake City. Greatest snow on earth. I check into season passes. Skiing is an expensive sport. I call my little brother, who'd taught skiing for years. And we're talking, and he says, well, why don't you become a certified ski instructor? Are you crazy? You've skied with me before. You know how scared I get. He tells me what the ski schools have is an abundance of hotshot skiers who don't always make for the best instructors. What they need are understanding people who are willing to become better skiers while helping their students improve. Well, as a martial arts instructor, I was really good at helping to build confidence in my students. A season pass, an expert training at no cost, a pro-form discount on all kinds of outdoor gear and apparel, and I could actually make enough money to pay for this lifestyle, then why am I freaking out? Up to this point, I had gone back to the slopes repeatedly, but the thought of being a ski instructor, it made me wonder about that old saying, those who can't do, teach. The first time I stood in front of a group of novice skiers, my skin burned under that designer ski school jacket. I'm thinking, what have I done? What am I doing here? I can't get anywhere near black diamonds. I still struggle on blue diamonds, and I'm an instructor? Fast forward a few seasons. I come to the realization that the physics up on the mountain are the same for everybody. Gravity, the pitch of the slope, the surface conditions, any obstacles along the way. Those who enjoyed themselves, they were using those dynamics to their advantage, and they weren't allowing the mountain to have its way with them. The rest wrestled against an unyielding force. I'd ask my students, point in the direction of what you're afraid of. And of course, they'd point down the fall line. Fall line's where if you put a ball on the snow and let it go, the path that ball's going to follow. That's what's pulling on us. I'd get them into this wedge, facing straight downhill, not moving. Next, I'd show them how to embrace just a little bit of that gravitational pull, just enough to initiate and complete a turn, because that stops us. Gravity doesn't work going uphill. That's when it hit me. I was encouraging my students to face their fear, embrace their fear, and as we worked together, it evolved into befriending their fear. And yes, after 21 seasons, I now love black diamond runs. So, enough about me. When I'm on the mountain teaching, I look at my students. So I'm going to treat you all like you're my ski school students. I can look at how they're dressed, I can look at their gear, I can listen to all the exotic places they've supposedly skied. Guess what? 2 minutes off that lift, I know exactly how they're dealing with the conditions underfoot. There's like this no BS thing that goes on up there. Okay? In business, way different. You all look good. You can tell me about your businesses and how wonderful everything's doing. Until I see you sliding through challenging terrain, I don't know what you need. But my commitment, because of my personal experience, is in 21 years, I have never not taken someone to a better place by the end of the lesson, usually beyond what they thought was possible. That's how I approach consulting. Unfortunately, it just isn't that immediate gratification. Sometimes it can take weeks, months, years. Sometimes it will never happen. But that's my goal, is to somehow help you folks look at something different, experience something different, be willing to try something different that might help you in your business. So, my question is, what is fear to you? Because it's one of those things that each and every one of us has our own unique experience. Some are a little bit similar, but you can't assume that, oh, I know your fear because it's identical. No, it's not. So, give me some examples in business, in life, because as entrepreneurs and business owners, the two are pretty much intertwined. What is your experience of fear?
Uncertainty, just anything unknown. The fight, flight, or freeze instinct is produced when you have to pause to think for something for too long. And so when you don't know the answer to something right away, which when you're first starting off, you just don't, then the fear takes over and you have to be able to either fight through it or, like you said, befriend it.
Awesome. Anybody else? What's fear to you?
Getting on the phone and doing cold calling.
Okay.
It scares me to death.
Okay. What is it about that scares you?
I don't know. It's irrational. I know it's irrational because I know that nobody's going to come through and rip my neck off when I do it, but it's an irrational fear.
Have you ever called me?
Not you.
No? Well,
Let's try. What's your phone number?
who else? What is fear to you? Because we all experience it. Here's the deal, folks. It's one of those things we just don't talk about. I'm good. I'm fine. I got this. You don't walk, hey, I'm afraid. I'm going to tell a group of people that I was so humiliated they had to drag me off a mountain. But owning that is what set me up to eventually be able to do something with that. And I'm still not a hot dog skier by any stretch of the imagination. But I'll tell you what, I've worked with people, high-level people, who have skied the world, taken all kinds of lessons, and they told me, Barry, nobody's ever given me a lesson like that. Because I got inside of them. I wasn't caring so much about their put your knees here and your... No, what are you experiencing and what could we possibly do to change the quality of that experience? What is fear to you?
Recently I identified about the only thing I can be sure I'm afraid of is cold.
Okay. We invented this thing called jackets. It's a wonderful phenomenon.
Working on that.
Yeah. Utah's really good at stuff like that. We've got layers. Who else?
I think fear of loss or fear of in almost like losing somebody or protecting our kids or things that I think are more rational. Definitely where we can't protect our kids at school or there's certain things we just can't control. I think that's
Control.
Yeah.
Control's a biggie. When we are out of control, we are not in our happy place. Think about driving your car. You turn the wheel and nothing happens. What goes on inside of us?
Fear.
Okay? You put your foot on the brake and nothing happens. Okay? When it's more immediate, like that, like up on the mountain, then now we can see it. When it's business, when it's family, it's a little more abstract, but it's that same kind of thing that's happening inside of us. And what happens to us when we go into a state of fear?
Panic.
Physiologically, what does that panic produce?
Increased heart rate.
Increases the heart rate. What else?
Stress.
Stress. What else?
Start sweating.
Aha. We start going into tunnel vision. I can't access all the information that I already have, that I own. It's out of my reach. What happens to our sense of judgment? Decision making. Right? In martial arts, any martial artists in here? People have studied martial arts? A lot of people are under the impression that martial arts is primarily about learning how to beat up people. Okay? No. The real martial arts is how do I get myself mentally and physically into a place where regardless of what's happening around me or to me, I can still think straight. So I can make better quality decisions and use the skills and information that I have at my disposal. That's what a martial artist is experiencing. So, is fear mental? Is it emotional? Is it physical?
I think it's self-talk, that something bad is going to happen that you can't control.
I think it's all of them. There's times when the body reacts that my mind doesn't feel afraid, and there's times when my mind is afraid but my body isn't, and and emotionally I'm scared. I think it's all three.
Anybody else? I've interacted with people who are fear experts because I wanted to understand this thing that I experienced so profoundly, because it still happens. Folks, you'll see me out on the mountain and I'll be doing just great, and then all of a sudden something shows up and I'm right back to that day. It's like, what just happened? I know how to do this. I can teach other people how to do it, and I'm going like, okay. It keeps happening. My understanding is that fear begins as a mental concept. It goes to a physical response. The mind doesn't really experience the fear, it just thinks about the fear. But the body is like, oh, thanks, now I got to deal with this. And yet most of us would think fear is an emotion. So I got to meet a Navy SEAL, a team leader, team commander. He was also an MBA graduate, really sharp guy. And we're having coffee in San Francisco, and I asked him, what is it with you folks about emotions? He's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, in all the books, all the movies, I've never heard any of you talk about emotions. So are you more like Spock in Star Trek, where you've learned how to compartmentalize it so it doesn't get in your way? And he's going, oh, now I see what you're asking. No, we need our emotions. That's where the intuition and the instincts live, and we need those razor sharp. Well, then why don't you ever talk about it? Oh, yeah, what we discovered is the mind and the body are what we have to work with. The emotions are the relationship between the two. So if you see someone who's emotionally distraught, zoom the camera out a little bit and you will see a mind and a body that are not communicating so well. You get the mind and the body talking, the emotions start to calm down. So from a Navy SEAL perspective, emotions are what the body is doing about what the mind is thinking, and what the mind is thinking about what the body is doing, which is where the whole mind-body thing came from. They don't call it mind-emotion-body, it's just mind-body. But the emotions are real. That's where we have the experience. So if I'm thinking something bad is going to happen and my body's producing that experience, yeah, my emotions are going nuts, going, well, here it is. If I can calm that down, have you ever heard somebody say, well, if you're really going through a stressful time, go take a walk, go do some exercise, because now the body's doing something. How about, quit thinking about bad things and start thinking about some positive things? There's this weird phenomena. Again, it's exaggerated up on the mountain. Somebody's out of control a little bit, and there's somebody in their path, and they really, really don't want to hit that person. Maybe it's a kid, maybe it's it's a big guy and there's a woman. Any scenario. What happens? They keep staring at the thing they don't want to hit, and sure enough, bam, they hit it. So what we teach people is if you're scared of the person, the tree, the cliff, don't look at it, look the other direction, and that's where you'll go. It's the same in life. It's the same in business. Oh, my business isn't going to work. It's going to fail. Oh, well, you're drawing that closer. Well, there may be something to that, and we need, as intelligent people, to look at it to see, well, what are we up against? But are we looking at all the positives? What is working? What's the market saying? What do I have to offer? How about I focus on some of that? Not to ignore this one, but to make sure I'm putting it into perspective. So does that make sense, that the experience of fear is an emotion, but it's the mind sending signals to the body which is producing the environment for those emotions to happen. Is fear real or is it imagined?
It's real.
Why is it real?
It's real because what you think about, you produce. So if you're fearful of something, then it's real in that person. It may not be real to someone else, but it's real within you.
Anybody else?
I think it's both. I mean, some irrational and irrational fears, but yeah, like you said, the emotion's real, whether it's irrational or rational fear. You know, so that, I guess that feeling is real, but I guess if you can break it down and try to, you know, I don't know, see things through, it might not be real, and it might not be logical fear.
Anyone else? From my experience, fear is always real to the person who's experiencing the fear. You can't tell someone the emotion that they're experiencing is not real. But like you said, it may not be based on anything in reality, but to them it is very, very real. So how many times does someone say, "Oh, don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of"?
One of the most useful things I've heard in my life is it's okay to feel the way you feel. Because we tend to resist things like fear. And as long as we're resisting it, we can't process it, we can't do anything about it.
Exactly. Exactly.
It helps to say, oh, it's okay that I'm afraid right now, and then you can move forward.
Now, what's the next step in this self-evaluation process? I'm experiencing fear. Okay.
Why am I afraid?
Or,
What can I do about it?
or, what am I afraid of? Can I point at it? Can I face it? Because if I can't face it, I still don't know for sure what I'm dealing with. Oh, that's what I'm afraid of. At least that's what I think I'm afraid of. Now I can go into more of an assessment. Well, is that real or not? If I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, you know, and I think I could die, guess what? That fear is really my friend saying, dude, take a step back, because I can't help you once you take the next step. You're done. How many of you, when you get into your car, do a 10, 20, 50, 100-point inspection of the car before you put the keys in and take off? I don't think I've ever done that. Even when I rent a car I've never driven before. If we were going to put a pack on our back and head up into the mountains for a week or two, how much time am I going to put into examining what's in my pack? I don't want to get up there and find, oh, really? How much time does a pilot take before they take the plane off the ground? Even though they just landed it. Because they don't want to get up there and find out, are you really? Now you tell me? So we can examine things to find out what is really going on. Is this fear supporting me by letting me know? Has anybody ever walked into a building, walked into a room, and you just kind of got a cold shiver? Like, okay, I don't know what's going on in there, but there's something weird. That's what the SEAL team leader was talking about, following our instinct and our intuition. If you break it down, instinct is the part of the emotions more associated to the body. It's instinctual, the fight or flight. Intuition is associated more to the mind, that we can see things that aren't really there, but we're sensing. So the more we exercise those, the sharper we get. And in this scenario, the intuition is the one I'm more interested in than the instinct. We're not so much in a physical fight or flight scenario, at least not most of the time, but the intuition. What's coming around the corner that we can't see? What would make this project work better? I have a fellow presenter, and his thing is, what if? I know they say it's impossible, but what if it was possible? What if we could do it? What would we need? How would that work? What would it look like? I realize I'm just intuiting, but what would be possible if that could happen? So how does this relate to our fear? If fear is something that we are not consciously aware of and exercising, what are my fears? How do I process fear so that then I can use that in relation to whatever I'm dealing with? How many of you have people who work for you or work with you? What are their fears? In 20-some years of consulting, most owners, CEOs, managers, they know what needs to be done. They know what the expectations are on their people. It never ceases to amaze me. They don't know who those people are. Wouldn't it be useful information to know who you are if I'm going to try to lead you, manage you, sell something to you? Oh, now I've got some information to work with. Fear of cold calling. It's huge. But we're imagining something that isn't necessarily real. What are the things you need to know whether it's worth your time and energy to even proceed? Could you use or benefit from whatever I have to offer? If not, hey, thanks for the time. If you cross paths with someone else, send them my way. If so, let me find out a little bit more to see if this is really a good fit for you. I could easily be afraid of teaching people how to ski who have never done it because the variety of things they do, I could go on for weeks telling stories. Intelligent, formidable people who turn into puddles of mush because they're out of control and they've never experienced anything like that in their adult professional lives. I could be terrified. I'm here to help you. What do we have to work on? What other things have you done physically that I might be able to tap into to help you befriend this fear you're dealing with? We talked a few minutes ago about how we project ideas that may or may not be real. Are you familiar with the term confirmation bias? If not, you know what it is, you just may not have heard the term. It's where the mind has an idea, a belief, an opinion, a philosophy, and it goes to work to find information that validates or corroborates its position.
So it's the news media.
Yeah. People who only listen or watch one, that's feeding their bias. People who really want to know what's going on would need to watch opposing views to go, oh, there's more than what either one of these is saying. How do we deal with confirmation bias in terms of our business? Where does confirmation bias show up? I'll give you an example. Was there ever a time in human history when the earth was flat? How many thousands of years did we operate under the belief that it was? Nobody even questioned it. Well, yeah, and just stay away from the edge.
There's compelling evidence on YouTube right now.
Right? Science puts information on the table that, guys, it's round, it's an orb, and it took 300 to 400 years before we finally said, okay, it's round. And now we've got people who would swear, no, you guys, you got it all wrong, it's still flat. Did you not watch any of the video from outer space? Or okay. All right. Was there ever a time in human history where men were smarter, stronger, or more adept than women? Pound for pound, ounce for ounce, women are stronger than men.
Well, but they're bigger.
Bigger, yeah. We might have more mass, but again, pound for pound. Guess which of the genders is more adept at dealing with fear?
Women.
Women. Okay. How many hundreds of years is it going to take before we get over this whole gender disparity thing? It's nuts. And yet, because we've believed it for so long, we're going to keep that going. What about race, ethnicity, religion, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation? We've got biases about all these things based on what I think. But I don't know what's going on with anybody else. Don't you find it a little bit interesting how many political, religious leaders are so anti-something until their son or daughter comes out, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I changed my mind. So your son and daughter was enough, but anybody else's son or daughter, no, it's still not good enough. Really? Is that who we are? Is that how we do? When we go out into the business world, how many different kinds of people are there?
Everyone's different.
As many as you can imagine. Well, why do you do things the way you do? Why do you write from right to left instead of left to right? That's just weird. Well, guess what? They're looking at us the same way, going, no, I thought the same thing about you. What is it in confirmation bias that we're afraid of? Because this is huge in business. That I've already made my mind up about you. And this is how I feel about you, and this is how I'm going to treat you. But now we have to work together. And I can't help but notice, wow, you do some really good work, and it's really nice having you as part of the team, and oh, wait a minute, no, I don't like you. No. Mm-hmm. If I start opening up and appreciating you, it could cause me to have to reevaluate the piece of ground I'm standing on. And we don't want to do that. Why? Because this makes me feel like I have control over my point of view. I can stand behind this. I start opening up, well, now I don't know how I think or feel about a number of things. Well, there's a thing that happens to us when we're very, very young. Most of you have kids or you're around kids. Yeah? What happens when a little kid, they're a few months old, and they decide to let go of the crib or the couch or the wall or whatever they're holding on to? What happens in those little bodies as soon as they let go? There are proprioceptor nerve endings that go up and down the spinal column that go out to our hands and to the bottom of our feet. And that wobble is the body trying to figure out balance in terms of a flat, level surface. And once that's set, it's pretty much set for life, unless we have some kind of a accident or injury that, okay, now it's messed with it. But when was the last time most of you got out of a chair, got out of bed in the morning, and had to think about standing up perpendicular to the floor? All right?
So the earth is flat?
Finally, somebody gets it. Skiing, the degree of difficulty, why some people just struggle so much, because when you put them on a pitched slope, that little gyro inside their body wants to stand up perpendicular to gravity. It doesn't work that way because of the way the skis are on the mountain. What they need to do is be perpendicular to the pitch. Then it starts working, because now the skis are flat to the mountain. Now we can steer. What happens a few years later when we get up our little tricycles, which we could pedal around everywhere, and they put us on a two-wheel bike? That same wobble is back. So weeks, months later, we get to where we can go straight and they can let go of the seat or take off the training wheels and we're good. And then we go around a corner. And what happens? The bike wants to tip and that gyro wants to sit up straight. If any of you have motorcycles and you ever had somebody on the back, you may have had to have the conversation with them. Look, when I lean, you need to lean with me or it could cause serious problems. All right? Okay. Ride that bicycle around the corner, tipping 50, 100 times. Now try to sit up. Well, I can't. It's counterintuitive, but I'm operating with better quality information. What happens if that bike tips 1 degree out of our comfort zone? That muscle's ready to engage. That's what happens up there. People they're comfortable on a green run. They're comfortable on a blue run. And somebody says, well, if you can do that, come on, let's go do this. And it's 1 degree out of their comfort zone, and it's all out the window. They can't do it anymore. Are we willing to get out of our comfort zone 1 step at a time, 1 turn at a time? Because this is what I show folks up there. You're looking way down the slope. And if you point your skis straight downhill and go, yeah, the likelihood of something bad happening is really, really high. Because you have no idea how to turn or stop. But if you make 1 turn and park it, the reality is you just can't get that much speed going to make 1 turn. Oh, really? That's it? That's all I have to do? Yeah. Now you get to decide if you want to make another and another. So I use my dating analogy. I asked this lady out on a date, and she's gracious enough to say yes. So I swing by and pick her up, and she gets in the car, and I go, so, where would you like to go on the second date? Can we do this one first, and then we'll make that decision? It's the same thing up there. Finish the first one, and then decide, do you want to go for something else? Okay, so what would be that 1 turn that you could do in your business endeavor without having to go down the whole slope and risk your life? So I'm going to pick on you. What's 1 turn that you could do in terms of cold calling?
Practice on people I already know. Just call my brother and use him as a listening post for few minutes and just try it out.
Okay. Are you aware that the human brain does not know the difference between fact or fiction, fantasy or reality? It's just the way we're wired. This is where the confirmation bias comes. We keep trying to get information to, build on what we think. So yeah, the flat earth people, that's all they want to look at is, see, here's more evidence and more evidence. When you pick up the phone, is the person on the other end aware of whether you're a family member, a best friend, or a sales guy up here?
Nope.
No. But you know what it feels like to talk to your brother or a good friend. Mentally, physically, that emotional state it puts you in, you know what that's like. Well, you can produce that state on command. Hi, I'm your best friend, calling to talk to you to see if this makes any sense to you. Does it feel good to you? Does it feel good to them? Because guess what? The guy on the other end of the line, all of a sudden he feels like his best friend just called him. Talk to really successful salespeople. They do this automatically. There's times when I do sales trainings that I have to ask people to please leave the training. Because they've already got it. And what I'm talking about, they're going to start trying to intellectualize what they already own. No, you're good. Go. Just keep doing what you're doing. What else? What's one turn? Oh, you've got a golden sword. What was one turn that you had to do in order to move forward?
Face the fear. I just had to say, here's where it is. What are you going to do with it?
And then you were telling me about your wife and what she did.
She kicked me around.
One step at a time. And now you just walked into the building and you're going to walk home and what else? One step.
I'm at a loss.
What kind of business you in?
Software.
Okay. Do you have employees?
Yeah. It's
How well do you know your people?
really well.
And would they agree with that?
Certainly.
Okay. So one step for you might be just staying up with what's going on in their life. Do you know what critical things are happening or significant things are happening in their personal lives?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're very close.
that's awesome. This is an example of how small business can work well. Because a lot of owners and managers don't. I was fortunate enough to be friends with Steve Huntsberger. He was the director of food and beverage at the Canyons for, 20 some years. And I would watch him, from my consultant mindset. They had 8 or 10 restaurants all over the mountain. And getting the food from the truck to the restaurant, it wasn't like pulling up to the back door and just bringing it into the kitchen. It was on, snowmobiles and this and that, depending on snow conditions and wind. And I'm like, wow. No wonder a $5 burger cost $10. That's what it took to get that burger up there. But I started watching him. He would spend 1, 2, 3 minutes with almost every person he crossed paths with. Hey, how you doing? How's that thing with the kid going? Really? Okay, awesome. And I'm asking him, is that what you do? Is you just go around talking to everybody? And he goes, pretty much. But then guess what? When there was a crisis, because they would have weddings and meetings and things, and it's like, okay, we need to rally. Every single employee on that mountain was there standing next to him. What do you need? I'm here. I'm like, wow. He manages with an iron fist, but not out of authority or discipline, out of familiarity. Of course these people are going to help. He wasn't afraid to get personal. Have we heard the saying, the division of church and state, don't mix business with personal, you know? Don't bring your personal problems to work and don't bring your job home with you. Really? It's the same me. How am I supposed to separate those? Why am I afraid to be who I really am, where I spend most of my time? This fear thing infiltrates so much of what we do. Well, if I get personal, then how am I supposed to discipline you or direct you on the business side of the equation? We need to learn the skill. So what's the one turn? Hey, let's sit down and have a talk. Here we are. We're coworkers and friends. Let's have a conversation about how this is going to work. I had a client who, after at least a couple of years, had asked me, well, can we just go out for dinner sometime socially? I'm like, yeah, what are you really asking me? Well, I'm wanting to know, can we be friends even though you're my consultant? I said, yeah, this isn't like a therapy type thing where I can't have personal relations, you know. So yes, we could be friends and you could still be my client. Here's the deal though. Most people allow other people as a friend or family member to get away with things that they wouldn't allow an associate to. I've always thought that was odd. So in my world, I'm going to hold you accountable to this level as my client. You want to be my friend, I'm going to hold you accountable to this level. And he's like, well, what? And it's like, you want to be closer, that's what it's going to take. He wrestled with it, we tried, and he didn't want to live up to it. So it's like, okay, no fault, no blame, but I only allow people really, really close who operate at my level of standards. This is how I treat people. Give me an example of something that you're struggling with that maybe we can shed a little light on. Are you willing to get over the idea that the world's flat? I mean, is there anything I could say or do to, you know?
Jury's still out.
The jury's still out? What do you do?
I help business owners to get an idea of what the value of the business is.
Do you find that there's things they're afraid to look at because they're not familiar with what those values are or what that value might be to someone else?
And it's also true that if they want to hold stuff back, we're not going to make a whole lot of progress.
Yeah. Transparency. It's a new buzzword, much harder to live up to. How do we get real with people?
What does that really mean?
What?
I mean, get real with people. I mean, the truth is, all of us are, have a certain situational appropriateness meter in there, you know.
Mhm.
This is what's appropriate in this circumstance, but it may not be appropriate in this circumstance.
Okay.
And so, what does being real mean?
This is great. This is the question of the day. Because I would reframe that. Why are we afraid to be real or authentic? And what does that mean in the first place? Okay. I am who I am. And to whatever degree I understand who I am. How am I wired? How do I process information and experience? To me, that's getting real. Now, am I willing to let you know, to whatever degree is appropriate in our relationship dynamic, if you work for me or I work for you, well, maybe a certain amount of that might be appropriate. Well, if we're going to become friends, this is what I was saying, then I need to know that I can open up and talk to you about more things, that I can expose more. I call it opening the kimono. This is me, okay? If we're going to be intimate, well, then can I just open up all the way and have no filters? So to me, getting real is deciding what is the relationship dynamic and how open and connected do I want to be.
And I think saying getting real with people sometimes makes people feel like it's going to be mean or it's not going to be a positive conversation. When the reality is if I want to hire this gentleman to tell me what I need to do with my business, I certainly want him to get real with me.
Exactly.
I don't want to have pretend conversation, right? So
How many of you, if you had something green stuck in your teeth, would really appreciate someone coming up and saying, hey, you've got something really green stuck in your teeth? Right? How many people are scared to death to do that? Well, it's not my place. But you keep looking at them. You keep thinking really weird things about them, but you won't. That's where I say get real. You won't open up and go, hey.
You have to.
I've gone up to total strangers, standing in an elevator behind a woman, and her zipper, of her dress was down that much. And it's like, ma'am, I just, wanted you to be aware your zipper's down a little bit. Would you like me to? Well, yeah, thank you so much. I was walking into a meeting and that would have been so humiliating. If there's something that is more on the negative, there's something you said or did that didn't land well, there's something we need to discuss. Am I willing to get real and go, hey, can we put this into a context where we can have an intelligent conversation about it rather than going off on you?
I think you have to look at it like it's not negative. You're actually helping that person. So if it's a zipper or something in their teeth, you're helping them. And same thing in business is getting real helps them either grow their business, make their business worth more money, or whatever it might be. You can't look at it as being negative. You have to look at it as exposing what is true.
Yeah. And so for me, when I say getting real, that's the lens I'm looking through is reality. It's not positive or negative. What is it? And are we able to look at it and have a discussion about it amicably? Yes?
Okay, so as entrepreneurs, we get to be people who are like jacks of all trades because, you can't really just hand it off to somebody because there's nobody to hand it off to, okay? So as you're growing your business, those moments of honesty of like, okay, this is not what I'm really great at. How do you deal with the cognitive dissonance that those moments bring? Like, okay, I really need a great marketing person here. That's really not me. But you've kind of pushed yourself into not being afraid of marketing, but now you've got to rein yourself back in and say, all right, well, that's really not my strong suit.
Yep. Okay.
Speak to that.
So
please.
there's a book out on the market, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Read it.
What's it called?
It's a good book.
The E-Myth Revisited. Short book, and it's all stories. So you're not studying some high-level technical stuff.
That actually just cuts it down into a couple.
Right. So here's the answer to your question. When I kept going into businesses trying to do that assessment, okay, it's way more complicated than seeing somebody get off the chairlift and going, oh, now I know what to do to help you. Because there's a myriad. I put down all the different things that could ever possibly happen in a business. And we start having conversations about that to expose, well, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What are your coworkers or employees' strengths and weaknesses? what I have found, and we were talking about this earlier, is how many business owners, they know what they know. So that's what they focus on because it makes them feel good. I don't know about this over here, so I tend to ignore it or avoid it. Well, if you really want to be successful, you need to be able to look at it. I put it on a mind map of all the different aspects that are relevant to this business. So you throw away the ones that aren't, and then you go, okay, what do I know about legalities? Nothing. Oh, I'm going to hire an attorney. Great. How do you know which attorney to hire? How do you know if the information they're giving you makes sense or not? I'm not an attorney, so how I'm going to be smarter than an attorney? No, I need to get educated enough, just enough, that one turn to where I can have an intelligent conversation with them. How many businesses have gone right off the cliff because the owner hired a bookkeeper, an accountant, a CPA, and it's like, oh, it's handled. And then months, years later, it's like, you're broke. Not only that, you owe a lot of money. And it's all gone. Well, they had no way of looking at a profit and loss statement or a balance sheet and going, wait a minute, let's kill the monster while it's a baby before it turns into something too big. So we need to know, what are my strengths and weaknesses? I can go into almost any business and talk to them about almost anything, but I'm not expert at all the things they need. So the ones that I am, hey, I can handle that part. These other parts, I know enough people, and I can at least have an intelligent enough conversation with you so that you know why you need someone and what it is that you should expect of them and how you need to know whether they're on track or not. That's part of being a business owner. If your business was your backpack, do you have everything in that pack that you need for your business to be successful? Did you know, or let me ask you, what do you think is one of the primary reasons for business failure?
Well, actually, I have three main reasons. There's been some studies out, but the main reason, 30–40%, is basic incompetence, just not planning. And the second one is lack of actual business knowledge and experience. And the third one is actually lack of knowledge about the industry or the field that your business is in.
I would tend to agree with all of those. And when you dig even deeper, the number one reason for business failure is business growth. Because now it's exposed. Now they've gotten off the chairlift and they're having to navigate the run. Now I can see it. When businesses start growing and expanding, anything that wasn't where it should be, any foundation that wasn't built, any game plan that wasn't, configured, that's where it gets exposed. And so how many times we see people who are so, oh, finally it's happening, yeah. And you talk to them a couple months later, well, what happened? Yeah, well, I sold the order to Nordstrom's or REI or Costco and then went bankrupt because we couldn't fulfill the order. Well, why would you sell an order that you knew full good and what you couldn't even make good on? Oh, we were just so excited and we thought, once we had that, then we'll... Any other questions before we wrap up? Okay. What do I believe? I believe human beings are born with the innate desire to become better versions of themselves. I believe the core trait which sets winners apart is their developed inclination to befriend fear, not just face it. I believe that business is the place for this transformation to take place. Not the mountaintop, seaside church or synagogue, not even the latest, greatest, get motivated seminar. Business is where this level of enlightenment is achieved. We don't think of going into a workplace to become better human beings. Yet the world of business, the arena where we spend so much time together, provides the perfect playing field. It's a tough, no-nonsense, yet highly creative environment where we learn to work and play well with others, discover who we really are and how we show up, and evolve daily to be our best selves. Don't let fear be your foe. Face it, embrace it, and befriend fear.